Hello, I'm Dave Corbett, and this is Contemporary Issues. My guest tonight is the editor of VDare.com, Peter Brimelow. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on again, Dave.
Yes, I should mention this is your second appearance on the show, and when you were on first, I had you on because you wrote a book back in the 90s called Alien Nation. And I have been a real foe of this illegal immigration situation, and that was the reason I had you on. But yours was really the first book, I think, that alerted us to this terrible problem of illegal immigration, wasn't it?
Well, it stemmed from an article I did in National Review in '92, and that's sometimes credited with starting the modern immigration debate. And for a while in the '90s, it looked like we were actually going to get immigration reform. It's not just illegal; it's also legal immigration.
Yes,
that's out of control.
Well, I wanted to bring that up because while everybody talks about illegal immigration, you have, I think, rather courageously and against the tide, said that the problem really is also legal immigration. And this is, I think, counterintuitive to, or at least to what many people think is counterintuitive. But we do have this problem of legal immigration as well, and we've had it, thanks to Teddy Kennedy, since 1965.
That's right. The problem with illegal immigration, and I'm an immigrant myself, as you can tell, is that the numbers are just vastly too large. And they were kicked off by the '65 Immigration Act after about a 40-year low when there was almost no immigration at all. And those pauses are typical of American immigration history. They've extend way back into the colonial period. I mean, this area around here, you know, Litchfield County, New England, after the Great Migration of the 1620s, there was no immigration into New England for 200 years. The country grew entirely through natural, and very fast, by the way, through natural increase. The Puritans were amazingly fertile. They reproduced at a fantastic rate. And so immigration is not continuous in American history, and the pauses are essential for the process of assimilation.
Well, the thing, too, is that immigration, with regard to what Kennedy and others had done, changed. They regarded too much immigration. They said, in effect, that there was too much immigration from Europe, and we opened immigration up to the rest of the world. Now, America is obviously changing in terms of its religious base and its racial base, and many people think that this is a great thing. But when I look around the world and I see people with substantial numbers of minority populations,
right.
Different religions, different races, I see countries with problems.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the Federalist Papers, you know, and Jay said in the Federalist Papers the reason we can make a federal union work in this country is that we're all of one faith, of one origin, one race, all that, and so we can make a federal union work. Well, of course, that's all gone now because by systematic public policy, the government is dissolving the people and electing a new one. And, you know, the point about this is that it's completely new. It's never happened before. This kind of fantastic diversity in immigration and this type of rapid demographic change. It's never really happened before in the U.S. Because when the mass immigration existed in the 1880s to the 1920s, which is the last time we saw a really big wave like this, first of all, they all came from Europe, so they had some cultural similarities. But secondly, you know, the native-born Americans were reproducing at a fantastic rate too during that period. So you didn't see immigration taking up the huge share of population growth that it does now. I mean, absent immigration, this country would have a stable population. It wouldn't be growing. But with immigration, it's going to go up maybe 130, 140 million by 2050.
Well, you have, writing for VDare.com, Brenda Walker, who, and she's not the only one who writes on immigration, but she is one that has really caught my attention, as I shouldn't single her out because the others have as well, Joe Gazzardi and others. Did I get his name right?
Yes, indeed.
Okay. But Brenda Walker, really, I kind of compare her to Diana West, who has written about immigration in the past, and a very, very courageous woman. But she points out what has happened in Europe. Europe has been inundated with immigration from North Africa, mostly Islamic people.
Right.
And you know, she points out that, you know, after tours in Vienna, we have now the takeover of Europe. And to multiculturalists, this is a good thing. But when you have the Archbishop of Canterbury saying, well, maybe we ought to go to Sharia law, this is astounding to me.
Yes, that's right. As an Episcopalian, I'm afraid to say it's not astounding to me. I wouldn't put anything past the Episcopalian hierarchy. But that's exactly right. I mean, basically, we're reversing here the verdict of Tours, where it was decided that Europe was not going to be overrun by Muslims. It's been reversed. One of the interesting things about Brenda, of course, and it's vida.com, which is the website that I run that flowed out of my immigration book, Alien Nation. It's a forum site. I run people of all kinds of political persuasions, as long as they have something to say about the immigration disaster. Brenda regards herself as a liberal Democrat. She lives in Berkeley. She's an ex-hippie. She's an environmentalist. She's really very keen on trees. And her position is that the more people come in, the fewer trees that there'll be. And of course she's basically right. I mean, it's population growth that's the major force behind environmental degradation in this country, sprawl and so on. So she does some very good stuff with that. She's also a feminist, and her objection to Mexican immigration and Islamic immigration is that these are cultures which are, in some sense, anti-woman. You know, the role of women in Islamic culture is not at all what it is in the West, and. Actually, when Alien Nation came out, I got a lot of letters from feminist professors at colleges who said they were fed up with being treated badly by their third world colleagues because they just simply don't respect women.
Yeah, it's really fascinating that there are so many women's groups who espouse a liberal, or what is perceived as a liberal point of view,
right,
and say nothing about the fact that Islamic immigrants treat women very badly as a result of their faith.
Right.
Yeah.
The problem is that you get these groups, you know, they're part of the sort of permanent liberal coalition, and they won't say things that will upset their other people in the coalition. I mean, it's obvious that Brenda at one point was very much involved in trying to take over the Sierra Club. But the Sierra Club is a membership organization, but it's tightly controlled by a group of liberal Democrats, basically, and they will not allow the discussion of immigration to come back into the Sierra Club program. It was at one point a part of their program because of their big donors. The donors have told them that you know, they won't give them money if they talk about immigration.
Well, now,
of course, it makes no sense because California is drowning in people.
Yeah.
And one of the things Brenda likes to do, you know, I mean, those national parks in California, those state parks, have been taken over by Mexican drug growers.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but again, it's politically incorrect to do anything about it.
Well, I know that you started out as a website that was really kind of devoted to the situation with regard to illegal immigration and legal immigration, but you've expanded, haven't you? Because I read a lot of articles that go far afield of immigration.
I do occasional line extensions. We get into stuff that my rule of thumb is I will run anything that National Review is too cowardly to run. You know, I used to be with National Review for a long time.
I know you were. You and John O'Sullivan.
That's right. And we were purged. You know, in the late 90s, we were purged because Bill Buckley got cold feet and didn't want to upset the Republican establishment anymore. We're not Republicans. We're not committed to any political party.
You mean that conservative Bill Buckley, who many people, myself included, don't consider to be a true conservative?
That's right. He has played a very negative role, I think, in the... You can say about Buckley that we always get told, you know, that he made the modern conservative movement, but he also broke it. By his attacks on Pat Buchanan, and in this case, you know, the immigration issue was a very popular issue with the readers, but the Republican establishment didn't want to touch it, and Bill sided with the Republican establishment.
Yeah, I think the Republican Party is really a captive of a lot of the people in the hierarchy who see illegal immigration and legal immigration as a source of cheap labor. But I also think they're whistling past the graveyard when they think that somehow, if they're quiet about it, people won't notice and won't think ill of them, because in the long run, illegal immigration and legal immigration spells disaster for the Republican Party.
Yeah, we've quantified that. We've looked at it in considerable detail, and it's just a matter of time. You know, people don't. Americans vote systematically differently according to race. They don't really shift very much. So if you alter the racial balance of the country, you're going to alter its politics. And the current policy is driving the U.S. to the left very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. And it's caused enormous tensions. I mean, I think the sheer fury of the Tea Party movement in the summer is really due to the fact that, you know, white Americans did not vote for Obama. By a substantial margin, you know, he didn't get any kind of mandate from the historic American nation, and they feel completely unrepresented by what's going on in Washington right now. Now, they don't say that because I don't think anybody articulates it, but in some deep and instinctive way, you know, there's tremendous distress in the country about the direction the country's been taken in by the president.
Now, when you say that, and I know that something...
I mean, the point is, what it comes down to, Dave, you know, diversity is not strength, it's weakness.
Yeah, yeah. No, I absolutely agree with that. As I said at the outset of the show, when you have substantial minorities of, you know, religion or race within a country, you have a very divided country. One only has to look at Canada and see the problems they have with the two languages in Canada. Right. You know, the common bond, I think, that binds us is culture and language, and religion, I guess, is probably a third.
Right. And that's the huge difference between this way of immigration and the last one. The last way of immigration, when kids came into the public schools, they were just heaved into English language classrooms and expected to assimilate. I know you're an ex-teacher.
Yes.
Al Shanker, the American Federation of Teachers union leader for many years, I'm sure you remember him. Mm-hmm. He when he arrived, went to school, he could only speak Yiddish.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, he was plunged into an English-speaking environment and became extremely articulate.
Well,
but that's not the case now. No, nowadays, you have all these foreign language educations.
Well, we have a whole concept called multiculturalism that really kind of retards assimilation.
It's language retention.
Yeah. I also think that we have a really unique situation. We have a prospect of an Alsace-Lorraine on our southwestern border. Alsace-Lorraine, of course, as you know, was that province between France and Germany, which was neither all French or all German, right. And it was a continual source of conflict between Germany and France. Well, we are building an Alsace-Lorraine in our southwest, and people don't assimilate when they live next door to their motherland, and we are not going to assimilate the people of Mexican heritage in our southwest, in my opinion, you know.
That's right. I mean, there's just been the really amazing thing to me about this situation is that the Mexican government is openly encouraging people not to assimilate in the U.S.
Oh, yes.
It's encouraging them to go to the U.S.
Dual citizenship.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, how much more unfriendly can you get?
Yeah.
You know, my son has just joined the Marines, and so this time next year is going to be in Afghanistan. I'd much rather him be in Mexico, on the Mexican border. That's the real threat to American interests. It's Mexico, it's not Afghanistan.
No, I've done several shows about that very prospect. You know, VDARE is to me just such a fascinating website. I'll tell you one of the reasons I like it. I can go on VDARE and read an article by Pat Buchanan, who I really like to read, and also Michelle Malkin, who's another one of my favorites, also a guest on this show. And as you know, Pat was on my show as well. And what I like about it is that you have these hyperlinks, and I can hyperlink to something where I get a whole another article explaining the concept that I just read about. For example, I was reading an article by Paul Craig Roberts, and it was hyperlinked. It was about the Brown v. the Board of Education decision, which is a fascinating read, and the implications it has for this case in Connecticut called Schuff versus O'Neill. I can do 10 shows on that, but I'm not going to get into that. But anyways, it allowed me to hyperlink to something else, and I have to say, it's so edifying, you know, to be able to do that and come up with an article. It's as I was saying to my secretary the other day, I love this internet. It's like having a library in your home.
It's a gift from God.
Yeah,
it's a gift
it
from
really
God.
is.
It's the only really important development in journalism since Gutenberg, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, for 500 years, we've proceeded more or less in the same way in journalism. They print faster, they print in colour and all that kind of thing. But this is completely new. And
now,
the interactivity is fantastic as well, with the feedback we get from the readers and so on.
Now, VDARE has been described, and I've read this, for example, on the internet. I've read articles that you've been referred to as a racist website. Morris Dees and the Southern Poverty Law Center take great exception to the fact that you write so much about illegal and legal immigration. Of course, they call Lou Dobbs, who they recently run off CNN, is also a racist and everything else. And you know, when you're edgy, and VDARE is edgy, there are a lot of articles that you will read that will never find their way into any magazine that has advertisers, because frankly, those advertisers would be subjected to a lot of pillory, and they wouldn't, you know, they wouldn't put their ads in the magazine.
Right.
So you are dependent upon donations from the public. Is that a problem?
Oh, well, on the one hand, people can be very generous. I mean, it's a wonder. We're a 501c3, you know, we're a charity. So anything that anybody gives to us is tax deductible. The downside of that is that we can't endorse candidates. But you know what? There aren't any candidates that want to endorse anyway, so it doesn't matter. On the one hand, people are very generous, and it's very hard, and occasionally you get people giving them quite large sums of money without any prompting at all. On the other hand, it's a constant struggle.
Do you ever talk to the people who give you money and ask why they give you money?
Not enough. You know, fundraising is a whole art, and we know we're a small operation, and we don't have really full-time fundraisers. It's spread out among those of us in the office. But we get a lot of email from people, and what it comes down to is that, you know, people feel very lonely. And they feel also that something is being done to them, and that the mainstream media simply cannot be trusted. Simply can't be trusted.
Well, there I think is the key to it, because not too long ago I sent you a donation, and
thank you very much.
And you know, it's not that I agree with everything I read in VDARE.
Right.
In fact, there's a lot in VDARE I don't agree with, but I consider VDARE a necessary resource, because there are things in VDARE that you will not read in the mainstream media. And I was talking about Brenda Walker, and you know, she's edgy, she's courageous. You know, I like this. I'll just read it to you for a minute. Now, the triumphs of Tours in Vienna, the Battle of Tours in 832 in Vienna in 1563 or something, are being trampled by immigrants. You had the Turks in 1563 and the Moors in 832, entering mostly legally. It's a wonder what the Muslim bother with terrorism at all when demography is working so well for them. I just love the way she expresses herself. And then she goes on to talk about Europe and, you know, this embrace of Sharia law, and how Fox News couldn't even go into French neighborhoods. They had to go in with armed guards to be able to ply their trade. And we talked about Archbishop Rowan Williams and his nonsensical embrace of Sharia law. And, you know, I know you're a Brit, but Britain is fascinating to observe because it is far advanced along the immigration road to hell, especially given its powerful multicultural nanny state.
The problem in Britain, you know, is that there's no First Amendment. So they've been able to, and the Canadians have the same problem, they've been able to basically criminalize political opposition.
Mark Stein has been declared a criminal in Canada for writing a book that was critical of Muslims because he's committed a hate crime.
Well, of course, having said that, you know, David, one of the first things the Obama administration did was to push through a hate crime law. And this law, what it does is it says that if you commit a crime for motives of hate, the punishment is vastly multiplied. But it's very clear that they interpret this to mean speech. That if you say something which causes somebody to commit a crime, you've committed the crime. Mm-hmm. So they're on the verge of trying to undermine the First Amendment here.
What if somebody submitted to VDare.com an article that was in praise of legal and illegal immigration? Would you run it?
It depends what the argument was. If it was an original argument, I'd probably run it and have somebody... I mean, we run letters all the time from people. They tend to be rather abusive. But, you know, the other side really has no arguments, you know. I mean, this is what I noticed when I published Alien Nation. Alien Nation it's a very complex argument going into all kinds of economic and sociological aspects of immigration. But none of them were met. None of these arguments ever met. People just scream racist. That's how they've been able to suppress the immigration debate for 35 years by screaming racist, and they intend to continue.
Well,
but yes, I would run dissident articles, and occasionally we do. As I say, we also have people who do. A lot of our writers don't agree on anything at all apart from immigration. Mm-hmm. So, you know, they're all wanting to fight each other on extraneous topics. It's like herding cats. You have to you know, keep breaking them apart.
Well, another one of my favorite writers is Nicholas Stix, who, like me, was a former educator.
Right, exactly.
And lives in New York and writes about crime.
Right, that's right.
And he writes some really brilliant articles about crime. And do you ever get to see these people? Or they just send in their articles over the internet?
Do you know, I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years now, and we work on through email and through instant messaging. Sometimes I can't remember if I've met people or not.
Yeah.
They become so familiar to me. I happen to think that email is a funny thing. You actually get a sense of people's characters through email more so than you do over the phone. Mm-hmm. Oddly enough. But the answer is, yeah, I do. There are occasional immigration conferences that we go to, and we try to get everybody there so we can all meet. And so I do meet them, but it's surprisingly infrequent. Sometimes James Fulford, for example, who actually does our hyperlinks, that's his function as well as writing. I think it was 3 years before I met him.
Oh, okay. And Pat Buchanan is a friend of the website?
Yes, that's right. We run Pat's column, and he's been very good to us over many years.
Yeah. Now, he had something to do with the start of a magazine that I subscribe to, the American Conservative.
Right.
And I notice Steve Saylor, who writes for VDare.com, also writes, of all things, movie reviews for the American Conservative. Steve Saylor has written, in my opinion, some really brilliant articles on this subprime mortgage meltdown.
That's right.
And does he have an economics background? Because he certainly... he certainly seems to know a lot about economics.
Yeah, Steve has an MBA, like I do, but his is from UCLA. He's from California.
I should mention you were a former writer for Forbes magazine.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I'm a financial journalist, but yes, he has a pretty good background both in economics and in statistics. He was in marketing for a long time.
Yes, his grasp of statistics is really, I mean, I took statistics in college, a course, not as a major, and so I have some familiarity with it, but boy, he loses me quickly.
Well, you know, he has the ability to, he's a really original force, Steve, and of course in a just world he wouldn't be writing for VDare, he'd be writing for the New York Times magazine, but it's not a just world, and we're all he has.
He's too edgy.
Well, you know, the funny thing about Steve is that he's personally a moderate. I mean, and he has multicultural friends and everything, and he thinks he's under the happy illusion that he's the house moderate at VDare.com. But the thing is, the subjects he writes about, he simply can't write about in the mainstream media.
Yes.
Just by making the argument, which is, he's been able to show really that the government forced the mortgage banks into making marginal loans because it wanted to have more minority home ownership.
It was affirmative.
The minorities then then promptly default.
Yeah.
This causes multiplied up through derivatives. It brings down the entire world economy. But you can't actually make that final connection that it was affirmative action, as you say, in lending that did it. You don't see that directly expressed in the mainstream media. They're cowards, you know. They're totally cowardly. When I was at Forbes, I used to do a lot of articles based on charts, and we weren't allowed, if you did anything that was about racial differences in anything, you know, abortion or anything, they wouldn't let you show the black bar, it's a bar chart, the black bar as black. Mm-hmm. It had to be pink or green or yellow, and the white one had to be blue, and the Asian one had to be not yellow or whatever, but, you know, orange or something, because they were too frightened to make these obvious connections. With the result, of course, that the charts became completely incomprehensible because you had to keep looking at the labeling to figure out what was going on. So, you know, Americans are really hung up about race, and particularly the media class. Yeah,
Michelle Malkin, also a guest on this show. Her article appears just about every week.
That's right. She writes twice a week. She's a columnist and she writes twice a week. And I think Michelle is a great columnist because she actually breaks news.
You know what I like about her? I love her passion. I mean, I have the impression that what she is telling you, she actually believes, and she will say it come hell or high water, and like Steve Saylor, like Pat Buchanan, she is not looking at some editor who's going to say, tisk, tisk, you shouldn't say it.
No, that's right, that's right. Although Michelle has told me that she's been told to lay off the immigration issue.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the big papers don't want to carry these articles that are critical of immigration policy. But she has a lot of other issues, too, to write about.
Well, she has written an absolutely wonderful, wonderful article on education, and it has to do with the History Channel, and it's called Hollywood and Howard Zinn's Marxist Education Project, and it's got a date of December 10th, 2009, and I just sent this article along with another article to a good friend of mine who does not have a computer, but he's one of the smartest guys I know. That's Vinny, that would be you, and he's I'm sure going to read this and enjoy it. But she's just a first-rate journalist. You know, Peter, we've come to the end of the show, and I just want to tell people out there to take a look at vdare.com. You're going to probably see some things on there that you don't like, and you'll see some things on that you do like. And best of luck with raising funds, because you're a voice that we need to hear. And even though there may be things that some of us may not agree with, there are a lot of things that we need to hear. And I wish you every success in the coming year.
Thank you, David. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.